I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money. And here we go. And here we go. Can't believe it. The year is almost up, 2018. For those of you that are listening in, for those of you on YouTube, just be aware that this is the month of December and we're reeling in on another year. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to be a part of your world. And today's session is especially powerful. Just a guest that's been on my show over the years, powerful man, an attorney. And today's subject matter is going to be sexual harassment. Yes, it's deeper than Me Too movement. It's dealing with all the intricacies of a culture that has espoused the abuse of women, and I might also add, men are in that category too, although not as frequent. But again, this is a issue, and I thought I would just bring on a gentleman who has specialized in this practice for so many years and get his perspective on what's going on out here, cultural impact, congressional issues. They're trying to pass legislation in Congress so that many of the congressmen and senators can have boundaries. That's so funny. But nonetheless, this is a very serious topic. This is not to be taken lightly, and we're going to explore that in the next hour. So without further ado, I'm going to go on and introduce my guest today, Craig Matthews, attorney at law. And how are you, my friend?
Baby, it's cold outside.
Woo!
We're going to start right off.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Woo!
Yes, it is.
Well,
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Michelle. Once again with you.
I'm always glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because I think it's a good metaphor. It's in the news, that song and such. And there's a lot you can learn about that, I think.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, let me say I love that era. I love that song, that period.
I love Fred Astaire. I love
Astaire.
I mean, come
so
on.
Many greats, Dean
Yes,
Martin. And
funny
sang
people.
That. Yeah, good
Bob
people.
Hope,
Funny people.
Sammy, funny people.
And I'm an attorney. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment. I don't think that songs like that or books, shows should be censored.
I don't either.
I think that they should be used as a means to get people to talk, to open up a national discussion. And I think that the wrong approach is to say, oh, this has got something that someone thinks is offensive. We could talk about whether it is or not and why. But the solution isn't, well, let's not let anyone see that. The solution is, let's take a look and let's talk about what is the buzz, what's wrong with that, what's right about that. And that's one thing I think is very good today, is that there is national discussion going on. And that's so important, because back in that day, everything was the Hollywood scene, everything was very nice, and there was no controversies, and that isn't reality.
Well, that wasn't a reality then.
No.
And it certainly is not a reality today. I'm glad that the conversation, the transparency is in place. And this is evolving.
Yes,
I'll put it like
correct.
that because sexuality in America, in the United States, is just, Craig, it's bizarre.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
I mean, it's like I was telling you before we came on set. Where would football be without cheerleaders? The females bouncing around and bouncing everything. And does that have anything to do with the game? Or is it the cultural conversation that it's perfectly okay to have females bouncing around, hopping around, as a part of the game? And I've never been able to figure it out. I came out of that genre as well in high school, where we bounced around on the field. But as I look back, I was like, what was that all about? You know, I don't know.
And the sad thing is, it has an effect on the culture, especially the male culture.
Yes.
And it's so all pervasive. It's not just the sports that we're watching, it's the television shows, the commercials, the billboards. We are so immersed with that, we don't even know it's around us and it's affecting us. It's like a fish in the water does not know it's in the water because that's just its environment.
Right.
I think the young people get it.
I think they do get it
The
because I
young-
think the
yeah.
exposure level,
Yeah.
in talking to younger men and women, the level of awareness and situational behavior is just more in their face. I mean, they're dealing with not just the issue of sexual harassment, but the issue of gender identity, the issue of just on and on and on. Who am I? And they're at the crossroads that we didn't have to face. I mean, we did not.
We didn't have to face them because they were hidden from us. It was under the rug.
Exactly.
They get it.
They
They don't
do.
struggle with the issues that we do. It's part of what's good about, the being a rebellious, teenagers. It's such an important part of human development. It's healthy to go through a time when we're questioning the authority. That's very important to do. And as long as that questioning is within a context where there's checks and bounds and there's
protection.
talking, and so that older people can help guide through that. That's good. And it's an important thing, not just pinning it down. But young people, one of my young associates, I'm going to admit to being guilty of this. I walked into a restaurant or so with him, and there was a young person at a table, and the red, purple hair, and just very strange. And I'm 66 years old, and
We're right there together.
I'm not used to that.
I'm not used to purple hair other than Prince.
And I sat down with this young man. I said, "What is that all about?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "What?"
What? You
I
begin
said,
to look
"Well,
around.
what
was that?
What is that?"
But what is that?
And he kind of looks at me, Craig. Who cares? Who cares?
And you know what?
Who
You
cares?
said that is the pervasive mindset, which is who cares?
Who cares?
I have not adjusted to pink and purple and green hair.
But
it doesn't matter.
This person, whether
Doesn't
they're
matter.
a man or a woman,
Doesn't
whatever,
matter.
dress that way, they're not hurting anyone,
No,
they're not stealing, they're not committing
Right.
any crimes, they're just being who they are. It's a little provocative in a sense, but so many entertainers are. So many of the greatest entertainers, they're doing, Liberace, going back to our time, wearing the brightly colored jackets and
sequins
such, and
and
Madonna, Lady Gaga. It makes life more interesting.
Yeah,
You know,
it does.
if you
It
walk in
does
a
make
restaurant,
it
everyone's-
does make life. I had not looked at it like that, Craig. It does make life more interesting. So how are you finding younger men responding to this Me Too movement?
They tend to get it. It's
I thought you were going to say that.
It's my generation that doesn't get it, and it's discouraging. And unfortunately, it's my generation. We're writing the laws.
I'm concerned about that.
And we're the judges on the bench
Yes.
that are enforcing and interpreting
Right.
the laws.
Right.
And if we're not getting it, then the laws are going to reflect that lack of understanding, and the decisions of courts are going to affect that. So it's going to be a slow change. So I look out to the young people. Hang in there. You know, it will change. The tide has turned.
And you
I'm
think
convinced.
it's turned definitively, meaning we're not going back?
Well, I'm certainly not. I don't have any crystal ball. But I think this is a monumental, just a sea change of awareness. I mean, look how far women have come. What, it was 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Women didn't have the right to vote.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
preposterous,
yeah.
and we're viewed as
It's
property.
ridiculous. Correct.
As
correct.
property, I mean,
Those days are over.
oh,
Those are not
trust
coming
me,
back.
they're
Yeah.
over. And I'm not saying it just because I'm a female, but I'm saying that there is a groundswell of women in my generation and my mother's generation. My mother's generation took so much abuse and just went along with it because the intent was to keep peace in the family. If it cost everybody else their stability and sanity. In my generation, the baby boomers, our whole thing was whatever. Give me some Pepsi and hot pants, and leave me alone. But I'm looking today at younger women, and Craig, they're not going there. They are precise in their disposition and their attitude, and they will check you just like that.
And I'm glad.
And I'm glad to see that.
But I'm, as a lawyer,
Yes.
I have to put on the hat of a lawyer when people are calling me, and it's an uphill battle, unfortunately, in the court still, because although laws are passed to protect the rights of women and protect against sexual harassment, and everyone, in terms of the talking points, you're not going to walk into anyone that says, "Oh, I think we should be able to sexually harass." They don't understand that they're in a culture that is. It's just like talking to someone. No one says, "I'm a racist."
Right. But there it
are.
is, the behavior.
It's subconscious,
yes.
it's the behavior.
Yes.
And it's a difficult conversation to have with some people. So we have laws that are enacted, they're being interpreted by the courts, and they're being amended so that the rights that are intended to bestow upon women or victims of sexual harassment are still challenging. We are not where we need to be. So it's very important to get legal advice. And I'm not trying to tout my practice or tout attorneys, but it's like if you've got something wrong with you physically,
You see a doctor.
You see a doctor. Don't wait. It makes the difference between life and death. If you start, stuttering or all kinds of different things, as we know, you go to the doctor. You don't wait it out. Unfortunately, so many clients come to me after it's too late.
What is too late? When is it too late?
They're terminated.
Oh my goodness.
They'll come to me and they'll say, "Mr. Matthews, I reported my boss. He was propositioning me, and he was saying this and that stuff. I'm not even going to say on television here. And I reported it to HR, and then I was They conducted an investigation. I was terminated. Okay, in most cases that's going to be too late, because I'll ask them, "Okay, now you reported this. How'd you report it?" I walked right into HR. "Do you have anything in writing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, we're speaking the same language here. If you're in my office, I have a poster in the back of my office. It's a large poster, and on the poster is written the words, "If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist."
You know what? And if it is in writing, it better be witnessed.
You better be able to prove.
You better be able to prove
it
that
was
that's an
sent.
authentic.
Well, and it was sent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not enough. So some people, some will tell me, well, I wrote down what he had done, and well, what did you do with that paper? Well, I handed it to them. Did you keep a copy? No, but they'll have it. And I've been
Where
involved-
in the shredder?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would recommend when you are experiencing sexual harassment, you should get counsel. You should call the doctor and
Which
say,
is-
this is going on,
The attorney.
the attorney, and just talk about it. What do I do? I can, if you come early enough, I can be of tremendous help, and I have tremendously helped. If you come too late, you wait till you're fired. I've been involved in those litigations.
Oh, God.
You know, I've been doing this for 40 years now. So you file the suit, and you either subpoena or you request reduction of documents. That paper is gone. It never existed. I have been sitting across a deposition table from company representatives. They've been sworn in to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and they lie.
Oh, can we pause on that? Because one of the things that I had to learn very early, and I don't make any apologies, I'll be 67 in a couple of weeks, but as a young executive female, I was very attractive to a lot of the males. And it caused, and women don't want to deal with this, but the female presence does cause a dissonance in the workplace. And
Sure.
men don't quite know what to do with that. Do you say something to her? Do you make mention of her physical features, how she's dressed? Do you touch her? What do you do with this her?
And that's
And that's what I'm just saying that because I experienced that throughout the long course of my business career.
And if I may,
Yeah.
Maybe It's Cold Outside. That song can be educational here.
Okay.
There's an example. It's a historical context. But look at what's happening in that. That was actually from, I think it's a musical.
Yeah, it was.
And if you see what's happening, I don't know if people have done it, you can video, YouTube. Baby It's Cold Outside. I think it goes back to either the 40s or maybe the 50s. I don't remember the actor and actresses, but it's an attractive woman and an attractive man. She's at his house. She's in the living room, and she indicates, I really can't stay. This king, I gotta go. And he goes, well, you can't go, baby. It's cold outside. And it's kind of funny, but what's happening there is a mixed communication.
Right.
Because I think men and women, I've watched it with my wife and asked her, and she acknowledged, she's giving a mixed signal there. I really must go, but you can also tell she really doesn't want to go.
Right.
And so that leaves men confused. So does no mean no, or does no mean
Maybe.
maybe? And I want you to kind of chase a little bit. So that's very confusing. So men don't know what to do. So in your context, an attractive woman, men, if they want to give a compliment, they don't know, is this being
Should I?
correct? Should I and should I not?
Should I compliment her on her dress or her appearance
Correct.
or,
Correct.
Correct.
So these
Those
are
kind of things.
It's difficult, and there's no handbook. But I think the guiding rule here is just being very clear. So what doesn't work is the mixed signals.
Right.
So if you're not comfortable for whatever reason, and that is anyone's choice, if you're not comfortable being complimented on what you're wearing, because men really don't do that. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where a man will come up to me and say, well, once in a while it happens, but usually, nice suit, Craig. Or, it just doesn't go on.
You start scratching.
I don't expect it.
Right. Okay. All right.
So it usually doesn't go on.
Okay.
Sometimes. But if that did happen, I wasn't comfortable. You can communicate that that's just not comfortable. And women need to do that. If it's okay, then, well, thank you. If it's not okay, let it be known that, let's talk about my work. And the workplace is a very tricky environment.
Oh yeah.
Because there's nothing against the law in consensual sexual relationships. Nor obviously there shouldn't be. There might be moral questions. In fact, there are moral questions. Someone is married, they have to face God, or they have to face their own moral quandary if they have one. Some don't. But it's not against the law for two adults to consent. But in a workplace environment, when the proposition is coming from someone who has the ability to discipline you or promote you or not promote you or make your life very difficult, asking the question or making that proposition, it's not fair. The woman is in an inherently awkward position.
Right, because of the power relationship.
It's inherent there.
What are you going to do?
Men have to understand that they have to be educated. Don't do that.
Right.
It's not your place. If you have that position of authority, you shouldn't even go there. You just have to recognize it. It's not okay. Well, she didn't say anything. Well, what is she supposed to say? You're her boss. You don't understand the kind of dilemma that puts her in. She probably goes home and doesn't even know, should I even tell my husband what he said? And my husband's going to be mad. He's going to want me to quit, and I can't afford.
It's going to get complicated.
And if I resist or say no or so, then is my boss going to retaliate against me? And I
fire me.
I'm working here because I need to be working here. I have kids I'm raising kids, or I'm not. I'm paying a mortgage and making a car payment. Most people aren't working because it's a luxury. So the first rule is in a workplace, for you males out there, if you are in a position of authority, don't even go there. Don't even ask.
Just don't.
Don't even ask. And there's many companies that's the company policy. Even if it's not positions of authority, some companies, like I think Trader Joe's is an example, at least they were at one time. I haven't researched it recently, but employees aren't allowed to be in relationships
with each other. I think
employees.
That's crisp.
It's a clean
rule. A lot
rule.
of fish in the sea. Find yourself a fish outside of Trader
Joe's. Go somewhere else.
Go someplace else.
Or if you fall in love and that happens, then you have to. Well, then one of us has to leave Trader Joe's to have this relationship.
Yes, exactly. And you have to be willing to count the costs. But I think that is an excellent position. Years and years ago, I owned a mortgage bank, and one of my staff members, one of my loan originators, was involved in a relationship with his assistant. I didn't even know until I got a phone call from an attorney about this, that she had come to him asking what could she do, should she do, and the attorney knew me and called me off hours. And I told him, I'm gonna do you one better than that. I'm firing them both.
Good for you.
I'm firing them. I'm not even gonna meditate on it. I'm terminating them both. Do you need to talk to my attorney to make sure the letter is properly constructed? And how much money does she want to be made whole? I didn't even, and he was shocked. He was shocked that I fired him. He said, what did I do?
Why did you fire her, though?
I fired her because I didn't want anything muddied. She couldn't stay on premise with that in the air. You follow what I'm saying?
Well, today, Michelle,
today,
that would be actionable.
Oh my gosh.
Because there are laws that protect someone who reports sexual harassment from being retaliated against.
20-something years ago.
These are the laws today. And
so how would you fire him and keep her, but nobody's going to want to be around her in her position. Nobody, I had an all-male staff. I was the only female. And none of the men would have wanted, they all had their own assistants anyway, but because of that situation, I was concerned about the stability of the workplace environment.
Well, we're taking an environment in a context of 20, 30 years
Oh,
ago
yeah.
and applying
that today.
Contemporary laws. So that's very difficult to do.
Okay.
You look at historical situations involving slavery or or women's lack of right to vote. But you're going back 200 years or 150 years. So it's difficult to advise in a past situation. But today, what do you do? So you do an investigation. If you're convinced, if there's sufficient evidence that the male in this case has sexually harassed, has importuned the female, and she didn't want it, then the male has to be terminated. It has to be terminated and move it out. And the woman should not be disciplined or sanctioned for saying, I was being sexually harassed, and what can I do about this? Now,
thank you. I didn't know that. I'm glad it didn't happen today.
And what's important is to have policies that spell this out. Every company, large and small, should have a sexual harassment policy that spells out
writing.
What's okay, what's not okay. What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Define sexual harassment so that the men that might not get it, now they have no excuse. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that talking about her bosom was offensive. Well, look at our policy. You can spell that out. And the policy should also provide what is a woman to do if they're in a situation like this, and it can direct them. You contact our human resources department, or you contact a superior. If the proposition is coming from your superior, then you can usually go above. There's got to be a way around to address that. So then you avoid a lot of these pitfalls and dilemmas. And if the woman follows that procedure, then the attorney really would never be called. Because in your situation, the policy, if you had that in place, the policy would have said, you're not allowed to be sexually proposition, asking for favors of subordinates. That could be in your policy. You can define what that means. And if you become aware of this going on, you being whether you're the victim or even someone that's just observing it or overhears it, you shall report this. It's your duty to report it. Then you report it, and then the company takes care of it. So the woman never needs to go to an attorney because she's satisfied
that she's been
protected. I've been listened to, and this guy is out of there.
Let me switch the scenario with sexual harassment, because we're mostly concerned, at least in terms of awareness, of women and men. What happens when a man is harassed by a female?
It should be no different.
No difference.
It should be no difference. It's sexual harassment.
Period.
Correct. Correct.
Because I've heard stories of, in fact, this was discussed with a friend of mine last night. He said, Michelle, it happened to me. He said, my boss wanted time. And he said, I was deeply unhappy.
Yeah, I've got a number of those calls, yes.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
My God,
absolutely.
You got a cougar? What?
That is abuse. It's the same. It doesn't matter whether it's from the male exploiting the female or the female exploiting the male. It's wrong. It shouldn't be going on.
She was his sales manager.
And the laws will protect in that environment.
Do they really protect?
Well,
yeah.
That's the problem.
Okay.
So you've got laws that are enacted. They're enacted by, let us say, well-intended people. But a lot of times they're enacted, they're written by members of my generation. They're written, frankly, by, older white males. You know, you look up at the makeup of either state or state representatives or federal, and it's pretty much an older white male crowd there. Now we're finally seeing some changes in some states, and certainly federally, you're seeing you know, more diversity, and that will help. But the truth of the matter is, that's in the future. Right now, the laws were written by predominantly white males that don't necessarily understand
What's
the
the
situation.
Big to do?
So the laws might not be as effective, as clear as they should be. They're interpreted by, so they contain some ambiguities. They're interpreted by courts. Does the judge understand what these issues are?
Probably not.
It's a battle. And so that's what I love about the law, though. It's a living thing. It's growing. The law is really is our sense as citizens of the United States or citizens of the state of Ohio, whatever state you're in, what we consider right and what we consider wrong, and what should be illegal, what should not be illegal.
But is that situational? Because what I call older white men are dinosaurs, which is you're heading out of here. It's a matter of time. But in the meantime, how do we maneuver in this changing climate? Because I just read an article, I think it was a Wall Street Journal, may have been a New York Times, I'm not real sure, where they talked about the impact, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, impact of the Me Too movement on men who are in the financial services industry, the industry I'm in, where they don't want to invite her to be a part of some of their activities after work. And they're networking, which is how
critical.
It's critical if you were going to be on that upwardly mobile path in that business environment. And they just said it just made them really uncomfortable because, you know, they start drinking and things can get a little bit.
Especially with alcohol. Sure.
Oh yeah. You're going to have that. And so here she is trying to figure out what to do. So given, and I was surprised to read it, that it had come to that where men were saying, I don't know what to do, I'm scared. And I don't know what is appropriate behavior, conduct, etc. Is it interpretive, Craig? Is it situational?
Yes, to some extent. Going back, if I may, baby, it's cold outside. How do we interpret what she's saying and what he's saying? So there is a subjectivity. Does she really want to leave or really not want to leave? And I'm not, you know, what I'm trying to say here is that there is subjectivity.
Okay.
Because so much of sexual harassment has to do with consent. So if you're a woman and you like telling, you know, off-color jokes and such, and you're okay with that, and you're telling off-color jokes, it's not fair if the male tells an off-color joke. He's telling an off-color joke. You know, you got to play fair, but the men have to play fair too, and you got to behave yourself. Just because you've had, you know, a couple cocktails or a few too many beers, that doesn't make it okay. Oh, it's after hours, and I'm intoxicated, so I can now be offensive. No, it's not okay. If you can't handle your liquor, as they used to say, then don't do it if you're in a business context. It doesn't make it okay outside of work, because it's really part of that working environment. Many times, you know, employees will get together after work.
They do Christmas parties right now, and I'm going to tell you about Christmas parties.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
But it's not okay.
It's not okay.
It is not okay.
But Christmas parties are notorious.
Correct.
For people doing things. And then they got to come back to work.
That they regret. Well, then, and the, you know, you're gonna, if you dance the music, you better be prepared to pay the piper, as they say. And the piper these days is if you're engaging in improper behavior and you're called out on it, you're going to have to pay. And
Does that really, and I know you're saying it from the perspective of an attorney who does this, but what does a person pay? Is it job loss? Is it loss of community standing? Is it your wife divorcing you?
Well,
what is it?
Good question. Good question. So we have two really levels going on here. One, the law provides that if a victim of sexual harassment, either you were propositioned, you turned it down, and you were terminated or disciplined, or you reported sexual harassment and you end up being terminated or disciplined because you reported it, the law provides that you can be compensated.
Okay.
So you're lost income. So you're terminated, and it takes you a year to get a job, and even when you get a job, you're making say 20% less or 30% less, maybe more than that than you were. That's loss. That's economic loss.
Yes, that is economic loss.
And the law also provides, you got state laws and federal laws, and it's kind of beyond the scope of our discussion. But for the most part, the laws provide that you would get your attorney's fees that you incur in bringing that action and filing the suit, and in instances you can get punitive damages also. So that's that's the civil compensation. But the other thing you bring up is something I want to talk about. You talk about loss of standing in the community.
Yes.
You know, a lot of cases that I've successfully settled never end up in court because the perpetrator is ashamed of their conduct.
So they actually have remorse?
I don't know if they have remorse.
Caught my hands in a cookie jar.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't want to be. They might not even be ashamed personally. And I could talk if we have some time later on about some people don't have that shame, but they don't want to lose face in the community. I've had a case where he was a very successful owner of several businesses in a relatively small Ohio community, upstanding member of his church.
I'm getting the profile.
And he and his wife were on boards and such. Well, he's having a sexual relationship with one of his underlings. It was consensual.
Work relationship?
Work relationship. She was put in a situation where, how do I say no?
So is that viewed as consensual if she consents because of fear of what happens if she doesn't?
That's a good question.
Okay.
But in this case, he didn't even want to go there.
Oh.
Because he couldn't afford he wanted that standing in his community.
Okay, so he wrote check.
Correct.
Okay.
And that goes on. And then you write a check.
Yeah,
That's correct.
write a check.
That's correct.
And do something else. I'm reminded of I used to be on the Chamber of Commerce's small business. We used to have these little breakout groups, and one of our members, this is like in the 80s, he was doing what you just spoke to, very large company here. And his wife was the CFO, viewers as Chief Financial Officer. He was the CEO, and they had a large manufacturing company, meaning there was a warehouse and production. And he was involved with one of the workers in a very real sexual activity. And he would tell us at these meetings, because we all were being transparent. And I'll never forget when I told Ted, you gotta be kidding me.
He didn't get it.
You're Catholic, you've got the church, you've got family, and he said, but my wife is boring. Who cares? You're in business.
Yeah.
Long story short, the girl went and sought an attorney and a psychologist. Two things, because she couldn't take it anymore. And during the midst of all of this, the wife walked into his office where things were going on.
Compromising position was observed.
A compromising position was observed. And being a good Catholic woman, she just said, I'm done. And the company, the bottom line was that he lost everything. He lost his wife. The company had to be sold to settle out on this case. And I don't even know where things are with him, because he, at all times, it never occurred to him that you're going to lose everything. He didn't get it.
I hope he thinks it's worth it. What he did. It's ridiculous. Some people don't get it. For whatever reason, they're broken inside. They have lost their moral compass. They've just got a problem. Some just don't get it, and the only way that they're going to get it, perhaps, is through compensation, having to write a check, because they understand money. Most people in that position, they do understand money. They like that big house and the vacation house and the yacht and et cetera. They get that, and that's all the law provides civilly. Because usually these are not criminal. Usually they're not criminal matters.
Okay, so they're not criminal.
Usually not, unless it's a situation where it's against consent. Then that is, that's rape.
Okay,
that's
yeah,
assault.
that's
rape.
assault.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if it's a consensual relationship, it's a civil matter.
Okay.
And so you got that civil component where you can get that kind of compensation. But then you also have the societal or the public shame component that drives a lot of these settlements, really.
Okay.
Because people do things that they're ashamed of, or maybe they don't have that sense of shame, but they know that everyone is going to come down on them. They're going to be asked to step down from this board, from that board. They're no longer an elder of their church. They would be humiliated. So they'll write that check, which is good.
Well, yes, it is, if the behavior that caused the check writing episode has concluded, meaning, bad boy, you're going to pay for this, and if you do it again.
Well, the check has to be large enough that it is
hurts.
going to hurt. It is going to hurt, and the next time they're in a situation, a tempting situation, I don't want to feel that pain again. Now, some people just can't help themselves. Some people are just very sick. And not much you can do about that. Unfortunately,
money is not a motivator.
Well, it is, but they're just so sick that they repeat it. It's sad, and I've been involved in cases like this. But that's all we have in our society.
Okay.
We just have the societal rejection.
Group shame.
The rejection of improper behavior. That's why it's good that there is a national discussion and what is going on in the corporate world, executives. Now it's coming out. It's in the newspapers and it's in the media. Some people complain about that, but it's good.
Well, I think about Congress, the fact they're trying to get legislation in place for behavior of congressmen and
yes.
senators.
You had mentioned that.
Yeah, I just read that, and it's tough because there was a senator that resigned up in Michigan, very, very prominent African American, and the woman basically said, I just can't take it anymore. And he denied, and we were all like, really? And then he retired. But in the meantime, they had some kind of escrow account where the Congress can actually...
It's actually paying. We're paying. You and I...
We are paying for this.
You're paying, yes, you're paying for it out of your tax dollars. So,
I mean, come on, Craig.
The Congress is...
Come on.
They've got the best health care program in the world.
I'm paying for your stuff.
Yeah. Best pension program. I mean, they really treat themselves very differently than they treat the rest of us.
Yes.
And it's just absurd. But in terms of in our world, so we do have that check writing sanction. Now, unfortunately, what's happening, this is a very difficult issue to deal with. a lot of these executives, if you're talking about big corporations,
Okay,
they've
yes.
signed an employment agreement that probably contains a provision, this when they're starting.
Okay.
So we're going to hire,
Okay.
you're going to be our CFO or you're CEO or whatever, alphabet soup, and we're going to pay you, so many millions of dollars. And if this agreement is terminated, upon termination, you get the golden parachute, as they call it. You get, rights, stock option rights, or just huge amounts of cash. And so these executives then are doing their thing and they're successful, but they're engaged in shameful conduct.
Okay.
It comes out, the company realizes we can't have the face of our company
Look like you.
look like this guy. We gotta get rid of him.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
meanwhile, they're become a multi-millionaire under that contract. So they don't
Yeah.
even feel that pain.
Well, I tell you, I'm convinced that the entire city of Naples, Florida, is reeking with men who have taken these golden opportunities and basically
Living the life.
living the life. And of course, there is an end game. You will die. You will have a reckoning.
Right,
And
right.
and at that point, it's not going to matter. But as per where we are today, if you could just kind of summarize for our viewers, and for those of you that are just tuning in, we're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace primarily, but it can pour over into other areas. And I'm talking to Craig Matthews, who's an attorney at law, and he specializes in this type of activity in terms of legal enforcement, and we've been having a great conversation about it. But can you at least give me a sequence of steps if a person feels that they are the victim of sexual harassment? Just if you could give me a sequence.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One, be clear about where you stand. If you're not comfortable with a comment or a behavior, let it be known in a respectful way. You don't have to engage in attacking or sarcasm. Just let it be known, this is not okay with me. Because I think you owe it to
the
your
person.
coworkers to be clear. Again, going back to that song, make clear. Do you
Be
want to
clear.
go or do you want to stay? If it's not okay with you, be clear. If that doesn't work, then report it. But it is critical. The report has to be in writing, and you have to report in a writing that you can prove that you sent. Don't just write it on a piece of paper and hand it to someone in HR department or to your boss's boss. Send an email, because you get an automatic, it's in your sent box
Yes.
that was sent. If you don't have emails and such, you certainly can have access to a fax. Then you go to, if you don't have one at your home or office, then go to, so many places you can, drugstores, Kinko's, and send it by fax. And then you have a fax log that proves it was sent there. So get proof.
Would you say that in the letter itself, a person, because it's going to be read by people that don't know the circumstances, should they have dates and times and things that transpired?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. And I would recommend, if you can, see an attorney. Talk to someone like me, because I can assist in writing that letter effectively. A lot of times people will put in their statements things that are really distract from what really the issue is about. Lawyers who focus in this area like I do, we know what the laws are.
Yeah.
We know what's okay, what's not okay. We can help guide you through that process. That is a very important letter that is being written there.
I think so.
It puts your job in jeopardy. It's worthwhile to hire an attorney to get some advice. Just like you'd go to a doctor because you got a problem. It's worth it to pay your co-insurance or your deductible. Get legal advice. That's a very
Okay.
important letter.
Okay. And the third thing, would you say after the letter is sent, should there be a reasonable expectation of a response?
Absolutely. And if there is no proper response, if it's not satisfactory, they're either not doing anything or they're not resolving the situation, definitely you need an attorney. Then you've got to, that's like the 911.
Okay.
Now, you got to get the ambulance
If
to take it
HR
off.
is not responding,
That's
or
a huge problem.
the CEO or the owner is not responding,
Correct.
then you
Correct.
must.
You've got to get
have
an
to
attorney
take an attorney.
your recourse is the court system. There are laws designed to protect you. They're complicated laws. There's restrictions. You're in uncharted waters. You need some help. You need some help.
I would think you would. And what should the person, how do you cope when the environment has now changed? Because in corporate, I'm so serious, the gossip mill is real. And it's not gossip, it's the truth. The secretary's seen the email, or someone else has seen it, and now it's out here in the workplace.
That's corporate's responsibility to make sure that that happens. So that
Okay.
corporation has to educate their employees that this is not okay. Retaliating against someone who reports sexual harassment, that is not okay, and we will not tolerate this
Okay.
gossip or snickering or jokes and such. That essentially creates what's called a hostile work environment.
Okay.
That should be protected against, and if that's happening, then you go through that process again. Put it in writing, fax it or email it, make sure you can prove that it was sent. Look, I made this report, and here's what's happening.
Okay. Can I ask a question, and at the risk of making some of my younger viewers completely uncomfortable, but when I came out of the industry, there was an appropriate protocol for dress. You did not wear things that were exposing body parts that were distractive. The length of the dress was appropriately at the knee. And all of this upper stuff was just not happening. A lot of makeup was never encouraged because it was a business. It was not a nightclub. And it seems to me that all of that has just kind of gone by the wayside. And people they wear, and not to be facetious, but should there be a corporate dress policy, or is that getting too?
I think there should be. This is a really a big area here. I mean, I'm in the grocery store with my wife the other day, and people wearing pajamas.
Yeah.
Where does
Where does that come from?
I don't know where it ends, but that has to do with this baby is cold outside. So if you're dressing provocatively, it's going to raise an issue. When a complaint is being investigated, was it consensual? Were you trying to flirt?
Yeah.
So why create that issue? Why even go there? Why give? Say you weren't. Well, why even give someone the opportunity to claim? Well, look at if she had her dress or on the blouse unbuttoned, a couple buttons, and why give them that?
Right.
Why not? Just you're working. Just dress for work.
Keep it.
Yeah.
Basic.
Keep it basic, and I think that policies should be in place to help with that. The corporate policy is about dress, what's appropriate and what's not. And if someone isn't dressing appropriate, whether they're a male or a female, their manager should come up to them and take them aside.
Can I have a phone number? Because our time is just about up.
Okay, boy, it flies.
I know it does. There's so much more I want to talk about, but we're done. So
right,
let's.
I'm at 937-434-9393. I also have a web page, www.ctmlaw.com. So you can call me, 937-434-9393, or visit my web page. Email is on there. I'd be happy to talk to people who are experiencing these problems.
Right. I think that this is a situation where we're all running for the rabbit hole and trying to figure out how to do this. and how to do it in a way that is professional and sensitive and not alienating or creating environments that are toxic. I mean, because at the end of the day, business has to be done. That's business. That's capitalism.
Right.
Business has to be done. All this other frou-frou is not going to work.
Distraction.
Totally. So on today's segment of The Power of Money, I'm Michelle Graves, and I'm with my wonderful guest, Craig Matthews, attorney at law, talking about sexual harassment. You have a great day. See you around. Bye-bye.